Greetings, it's DuconRed1 and welcome to episode 3 of this monstrosity of a project, Valloran. I want to start off this episode by just commenting on how amazing the comments have been the past 2 episodes. You guys have been sharing such amazing ideas, and I am super excited to implement some of them. Not only great ideas, but also such encouraging comments that are really driving me to want to excel in this series and keep it going strong. I mean, seriously, look at this comment by Ernad. How long it would have taken him to write this comment, but what an amazing idea. Pretty much what he's saying here is that there would be a resource deep in the mines of Valloran, which is actually a real crystal in the real world. It's called beryl, and it's a green crystal, so we can utilize that pretty well. And the thought is that using this beryl in a refining process with copper would create an alloy known as beryllium copper, which is an extremely strong, very durable alloy that is highly sought after. And this would explain all of the copper that we use. We could actually call it the beryllium copper, and I think would actually add a really neat and unique lore point that would also connect it to the real world. So last episode, I had mentioned that I am terrible at making statues, and I truly am. I'm going to have to practice a lot more before I can get anywhere close to being able to be creative enough to make my own. But here are 3 variations of a statue by Igor the Cruel, who is a recent member of the Tir Nadrus build team. So thank you, Igor. I am definitely going to be using these across Valloran. So now to the content of what I'm going to try and get done for this episode. And I've already gotten a slight head start. So I'm just going to fly around a little bit and see if you guys can kind of think about what this might be. Well, where are we at? We are right by the stonemasons. And so I thought, let's make a massive complex where they would carve great large columns and statues and different things that would be required across Valloran. And I thought, well, since we don't exactly have a lot of horizontal space, we do have a lot of vertical space. So my thought was to build an elevator accessible tiered workshop. So what we are going to do is there are going to be separate layers where there's going to be separate workshops. I'm thinking 3. Right now I got the one up there. There's going to be one here, and there's going to be one down lower. And then they're going to also spread out a little bit as we get lower because they're going to have more room horizontally to be able to do work. And then where the blue is where the elevators will be. So over on this side is where the access to the stonemason's house would be. So if you come in through this door, you are suddenly here, and this will be a room for the stonemason, and then this will be his personalized elevator, of which we're going to have to develop a system to make that work. Before we get to the stonemason's workshop, I want to first tackle the boiler room for the stonemason's house. So there was another idea in the comments section on episode 2 where somebody suggested that every rich house should have its own boiler room. And I thought that was a really good idea. And then on top of that, the lower class should have a boiler station for a group of houses, which would make a lot of sense. So as you go down in classes and tiers, the utilities would be spread out more, whereas each utility for the rich district would be more centralized so that you would not run out of hot water or pressure, and you'd have the highest of comforts. So I thought that was a really good idea, so thank you, Super Tripod, for that. And here we are. I decided I would make a copper boiling tank, and we got the furnaces down underneath with an exhaust vent that goes up a chimney, which I will show you guys here soon. This is the intake valve. So this would come in from the pressurized water system throughout the city of Valloran. There's a valve there to stop the water from going in the tank, and then it would boil in the tank, and then it would come out this pipe, and it would go one of two ways. It would go up to the bath, which is in the bathroom, and then this one would go to the pool of water in the laundry room. So that's what we have, and I'm going to do this, something like this, for each upper class house. Then this is what it looks like from the outside. I have like a little entrance right here, and this here is the chimney that goes all the way up. The issue I'm encountering, and this really brings it to light, is the fact that we're going to need exhaust ports for a lot of different industry around Valloran. And this is just to a boiler room. Obviously we can connect it to other things, maybe lower down. So, but what I'm thinking is we're gonna have a lot of industry, like refining processes for different metals, a great forge, smelting, all of this, and it's going to need a place for all the gases to go. So if you guys have an idea for how we can disperse of the fumes without making a bunch of random chimneys everywhere that would break the skyline and cause mishaps like this all throughout Valloran, let me know. Maybe some sort of like ventilation tubing system that goes throughout the tunnels and that maybe gets expelled out the walls. Actually, that's a good idea. We could possibly do that. In any case, this is what we have for this chimney here, and what I'm going to do is connect the house to the chimney and multiply it and use it for the fireplace for this house right here. We are now going to work on the Master Stonemason's workshop directly outside the laundry room. Did somebody say workshop? Well, I think we have successfully managed to make our stonemason workshop here. So basically the idea is that he has 3 different stations where he can put different materials. One is open over here. One, he's carving like a small section of a pillar. Here he's carving out a plinth, and here he's carving out a pillar. And there's all kinds of different methods of maneuvering the stones wherever they need to go. For example, a wheelbarrow. There's obviously lots of stones and things, and they need to be thrown somewhere. And so they would be put in this wheelbarrow, carted over to this, and then it would be dumped down this shaft, and it would go down to some sort of like deposit down, way down in the depths, where they would then reuse it for something or another. I'm not quite sure. There is a track system. So what they would be able to do is latch onto the stone, and then there'd be a pulley system to hoist it up, and then they could easily just slide it along this bar and then bring it over to here, which would then be on the elevator and then lead down to wherever it needs to go to continue its route. I've done a little bit of work in the workshop. So this is where all of the stonemasons are doing like bulk work. So the master stonemason would come up with examples, and then all the guys out here would then copy those examples and follow whatever the master stonemason has come up with. This here is my first attempt at a Dwemer style lantern. So like these, I have this idea for these large lanterns around the Citadel where they would light up large chambers like this. I think I may end up moving this to here to be centralized, because 2 of them would be a little bit much in this room. I do also plan on adding a track system in here on a larger scale than this to be able to transport the larger stone items. So, but yeah, that's that. I got these 2 windows right here to allow in some natural light, and a little fireplace over here to keep warm. So, oh, and yes, a small side route where he can easily just walk down and out and then access the road or wherever he needs to go from there. I just got a stream in and got some progress done on the main hall here. Well, I guess one of the main halls. And I like it. I like it a lot. It's very colorful, which is definitely something I'm going for. Lots of contrast. And I think that this works really well. I moved the light over, added some details up in the tops of the ceilings there. Obviously, we added in quite a bit of contrast in the walls. And we got the different representations of tools that would be required for activities in this area. We got a hammer, a pickaxe, and a chisel. This right here is going to be where the disposal chute is for all of the rubble that they get through in order to produce the items that they carve out. And so, yeah, I like that a lot. So this shows you how much light is in this chamber here. As you guys can tell, I have lights everywhere. The idea is that you will be able to see everything as you explore. Now, not everything will be lit up like this. It will only be in chambers where there's these large lanterns. And those lanterns are obviously supposed to be fairly bright. And so that's why we have it so lit up in here. Well, I got another stream in, and we went ahead and filled in the detail for this upper workshop here. Now, clearly, there is a lot of space in this chamber. However, there is not a lot of floor space. So the unfortunate side effect of that means that we're not able to fit that much going on in here. But that's okay, because we have a lot more space down here that we will eventually fill up with a lot of different workshops and whatnot for the apprentice masons who are doing the more grunt work. Back up to here, however, I will kind of go through this and explain what's going on. So each station is kind of organic. It's not a set bench where they do work at. So each one of these stones, maybe one per every 2 stones. I don't know, it might be one guy per stone. But in any case, they're making statues or maybe parts of statues. This guy is also carving a bench here. So the idea is that these are being carved into their eventual form. Now, all of the industrial work, like sawing and chiseling the blocks into shape, would be done down lower. However, up here, they're doing the more fine-tuned work. So this right here is my sorry attempt at a boom lift. I'm just thinking of a way to maneuver these stones around this chamber and to the elevators and wherever they need to go. And so I designed this very unique type of machinery. Yeah, don't critique me too hard on that. In the middle, I put the drafting tables. This is where they would kind of come up with the plans and ideas and sort out the large scale, what they plan on doing. This right here is where the master mason would draft and set things up for the rest of his team. And then this is a large board where they would draw up plans, and he would stand up here and make sure that the group of guys, there's probably, I don't know, 10 or so, what I would consider supervisors up here. And then he would tell them what to do. They would, sometimes they'd be up here doing work, and then other times they would be down in the main complex working with the apprentices and whatnot. This over here is where they shovel all of the debris, and it goes way down there where it'll go to another part of Valloran to be processed into concrete. Here we are down in the primary stonemason workshop, and I am in the middle of designing the alcoves where the workers would be carving like stone bricks and whatnot, all the little miscellaneous stuff. Now, I gotta give credit to where it's due. Cole Fetters has been helping me. Some of you know him from the Darwin Reforged server. Others probably know him from the video that I did on his French colonial Starfort. In any case, he had this idea to fit multiple alcoves, multiple workshops in each of these alcoves. My original idea was to kind of have it sprawling on the floor in here, but then I was like, that would get so cluttered, just like it is in the room up above. And so he had this idea to fit all these different workshops in a vertical format. And utilizing the lift here, we would be able to have multiple workshops that would employ over 60 masons. Each would host about 3 masons and 1 for transportation. So you have the storage room on the bottom, which is going to be where they're storing stone blocks and tools and things that they may need. And then each workshop is about the same size, and there are 3 of them, and each would employ 4. So really like how that turned out. And there he is right now inspecting the further work that I've done on his design. So when he was designing, this is kind of what he came up with, and I've just been kind of texturing it over and designing it further. But yeah, big kudos to him. Thank you, Cole. So as you can see, I've detailed the pillars and I've designed the support structure to be convex versus this is concave, and this is what I did for the above chamber. This is what I did up here. I made the support concave. Whereas down here, since it's such a large chamber, I felt that convex, aka poking out, would be a better option. So I like that. And plus, it really kind of molds into the support structure there. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to have all this wall is going to be workshops, and then over here is going to be different. We don't actually have room enough to be able to fit the workshops in. Technically we could here, but I'm not going to. We're going to utilize this wall for something different. So progress is being made. And there we are. I got all the columns pasted in, and I got the ceiling worked in now. So I really like how that's looking. Obviously there's going to be quite a bit more detail added in, and now I got to figure out what I'm going to be doing with not only this side, but also with the ends, because obviously that is not just going to be a flat wall. Well, the workshop is making some progress. I've gotten quite a bit done since our last recording. The first thing that I want to make mention of is we have added a system for steam power, which is pretty much the modern day equivalent of air pressure. But for the dwarves here, they use steam. So we're going to have chambers later on that are going to make steam. So there's going to be like massive cauldrons and heat and whatnot, and possibly even pulling steam straight from the mountain. But we'll see how that ends up. So I have this network of piping that's going to kind of go throughout Valloran. I got a little bit up here, and as you can see, it inserts into the tops of the elevators, which would then feed down these slides where the elevator would move up and down and would feed into the mechanism that causes it to ascend and descend. And here you'll see that I have some of the piping that leads over to this elevator. So I've done a little work here. I've added an elevator that's going to lead up into this chamber. This is going to lead into a room where refined stone is stored. So that means like, bricks, statues, carvings, whatnot. Okay, so I'm sure you guys are probably wondering what these are in here. This right here is a splitter. It's a giant wedge that would be, a pressure would be applied, and it would split the stone in half, or wherever they decide that they want to split it. So maybe they want to make a countertop or something, they would just split the edge there. But what they're doing right now is they're splitting this in half. And so they have these sleds which would maneuver the stone up underneath the wedge, and then through a system of pressure, they would be able to control the wedge and then cause it to split the stone. So these here are steam canisters. So when the steam comes in, it's compressed and compressed again, because obviously a machine of this magnitude would require quite a bit of compressed air. And so the first part of the process would be here. It would compress into this, whatever mechanism that is. It then would separate and then would be fed into the bottoms of each of these canisters. One would go into the control system one would go into the actual wedge itself, and then the other would go into sliding the wedge up and down. Maybe they have a smaller stone that they want to cut, and so it would be able to crank down. And so the crank for that would be right here. Over here, we have a saw, which would be able to make more refined cuts. The splitter would make very rough split cuts, whereas the saw would actually make it a very refined cut. And so they would slide the stone up onto here, and then it would then cause, they would push it through, and these saw blades would cut the stone. Now, I do want to try to figure out a way of adding water pouring down on these blades to lubricate the blades. I just got to figure out how I'm going to make that work. And then I got the same kind of plumbing system. I got a large canister to for this saw blade here, and then I got this canister for this saw blade here, and then that's what would cause the mechanism for the blades to rotate. And then the output for the stones would be over here. They would have these large stones there, which would be utilized for carving something like this. And then they would also further break the stones down by hand, and then they would transport them by goat to wherever that they need to go. Up here, I have an example of one of the workshops that I think that I like this design. Over here, we have a hydraulic press that has a chisel on the end, and it would split the stone into smaller bricks. And up here, they are carving bricks, granite bricks. And so that's what they're doing here. And so each of these sections here are going to have workstations for larger projects. Like this, for example, is possibly like a section of a pillar or something. So here we have an example of how these large sleds would be moved. And so we got goats tethered together with chains that would hook onto the sled itself, and then it would slide it into place. This is going to lead to the mines and also a network of other tunnels that lead to other industries and whatever else goes this way. Inside the hall, there's going to be worker class housing and or shops, whatever needs to go here. It'll be more like a residential area leading down these tunnels. Over here is where these large stones are stored. Say if they have overflow, maybe one of the machines is broken and they still need to process these stones and bring them up, they would bring them down this large tunnel here and then store them along the wall. This here is another transition chamber with a secondary elevator if required, just in case that they need, like a personnel elevator to access up here, because this elevator over here would be primarily used just for working purposes of maneuvering stone up here. So at the end of the facility here, we're going to have a garage type thing where a large crane, maybe even two, are kept to maneuver stones that cannot be maneuvered technically by sleds. So like, for example, stones like this, which are staged right here, would be moved by a crane, which would be parked in here, and it would maneuver down these roads, and it would be able to get onto this platform, bring it up here, and then bring it in here. I'm sure I'm probably gonna have a crane up here. This up here is the administrative offices. This is where a bunch of drawers would be. They would take plans down on what needs to be done, draw up a idea of what or how a construction project would need to be done, and then those plans would then be transferred to the master, who would approve them, and then they would be separated among all of the different working dwarves, stonemasons in this area. Another thing you guys will notice is we have the large lanterns up here. I made them a different design than the one in the main hall. You will notice that I don't have the chamber fully lit up yet. I figured that it would be best to probably wait to do that until I have this place totally detailed, because if I did that right now, it would kind of cause a mess and I would have a lot of hitboxes to worry about, so I'm just going to leave that as it is, and then once I'm finished, I will completely light this chamber up, and it'll end up looking like this, where it's all lit up and you can see everything. Also, you'll notice that I added those designs into the ceiling, and I think that adds a nice touch. So like last episode, I really want to showcase different projects across this server, and this particular project is led by Druss. Druss, you want to tell us what we're looking at here?
Hi, Duke, and well, thank you very much for showcasing this. This here is Riverton. It is the main city, and probably it is the biggest city of the Tír na Druss server project. Riverton is meant to be the capital city and financial powerhouse of the continent, and it is in the country of Thrace. Now, this was the initial build on the entire server before it even became a server, when the Tír na Druss was still a concept in my mind, and I began it on my own, and I was quickly joined by Susie, and we were then joined by more and more builders that I knew, mainly staff from the Dwarven Reforged server. This will become eventually what I hope to be the main spawn point for the server. We have Igor there standing on it, and this is a tented bridge, or a house bridge, inspired by London Bridge in the medieval times, and the houses were deliberately kept very enclosed, and there's a claustrophobic feel to it. So this is the main river of Riverton. The name Riverton actually was a corruption of river and town, so this was just a very simple way for us to name the town itself. I had initially called it Baile Átha, which means river town in Irish, but it sounds very, very silly, and I thought there would be pronunciation difficulties. As you can see, it is not finished on one side, not complete on one side, but one side we have houses built right up and towering over it, kind of jettied across it. So now we're entering the main marketplace of Riverton, and it's very clearly market day. The marketplace is enclosed with a couple of very important buildings. For example, the courthouse, the main bank of Riverton, and also a couple of small civic buildings that are used for the administrative purposes of the city. So this is an example of one of the buildings, and it is the building of a specific fraternity. It is a fraternity that's close to my heart, and these paintings were bespoke made by Gills or Australia, who used them for our own overlay. And this is the dining room we're in, and if we go upstairs quite briefly, we can see the main meeting room for the fraternity, which is again based off one that I know quite well and intimately. Okay, so we're now standing outside the city gates, and the city walls themselves are quite incomplete, but you can see that we have the plans for the palette of what they will become. So this is the portcullis of the main gates, and as you can see, it has a crank that is operated by one of the soldiers, and the portcullis then moves up and down on these chains here, and as it goes up or down we have counterweights that move in the opposite direction. It's very important to me to impress upon people that this project in Riverton isn't just myself that's built it. I've also had a huge amount of help by the likes of Susie and Gills and lots of other people. This particular house bridge here is built by Susie, and it's the custom house of the city. So as you can imagine, the actual interior decorations are such that it matches the purpose of the building. So there's a lot of office space, there's a small kitchenette for the workers to use, and then on the opposite side there's a warehouse for all the stuff that the customs house have. It's excise from the stuff that they've taken off ships and traders. This is a build by Gills of Delicia, and actually he's built the adjoining buildings as well, and it really does showcase just how incredible he is at both exterior and interior work. This is the interior of a church. It's just absolutely sumptuous in its detail. Okay, so in front of us we have a build by Carl Fetters, or Carl. Carl is a very good friend of mine from the Dwarven Reforged server. We kind of came up the ranks together on that, and Carl is one of the people I admire most on the actual Conquest Reforged mod pack. He's just an incredible builder. As you can see from the interiors here, this is a pewter shop he built. One of the things I love about this server in particular is that everybody's interior style is slightly different, but together they all complement each other very well, and Cole's work inside and out is again a testimony to that itself. For a city the size of Riverton, we require farmland, so the outside of the city out a certain distance is going to have a lot of farms. This small one here is a traditional Irish thatch cottage. This one is slightly unusual in that the thatch doesn't go over the roof, and it is based off an actual building in my hometown of Tullow in Ireland. Riverton continues to expand. It's quite a long time being built, about 2.5 years, and I anticipate it'll be another 2 years or thereabouts before it's finished. The next big projects for the city will be the castle or keep of the Lord, which is going to be built on a rocky outcrop to the east side of the city, and also a cathedral in a square close by to where the castle will be built, which makes sense. If you ever want to find out anything more about the Tír na Druss server, you can always join my Discord at Tír na Druss, and also we are steaming forward with plans to hopefully have this server made public, so that it will be a non-whitelisted server, so that you can come and visit yourself, and in due course we'll advertise about that too.
Now back to Tal Valloran. I have spent quite a bit of time adding in detail in here and lighting up this space. As you can see, I got a lot of lights set up in here. Over here, I used more of the vanilla light source, which I honestly prefer this because it doesn't have a hitbox when you don't have it selected in your hotbar. But unfortunately, I can't figure out how to set the default light source as a brush for World Edit. I can only place it by hand, which is really annoying. So I had to use the normal invisible lighting for the brush, so that way I could just get it done faster. I still am not a big fan of how splotchy it looks, but ultimately it's the best option that I have right now. So some things that I did is I made a system for these large gates here. So they are a system of steam operated mechanism, chain drive of sorts, that would cause the gears of these gates to open and close. I still haven't finished this one, but this one gives you an idea of kind of what it's going to look like in here. So I made this sort of like gate complex here, and then eventually this is going to lead off into other industries and a giant elevator that will lead down into the mine shafts, or the quarry that is way down below. So coming back out here, I've filled in all of these areas. You can see that there is lots of individual carvings going on. And I've also added goats, which, well, I'm sure actually you guys have already seen that. But yeah, the goats are maneuvering the rocks to wherever they need to go. Still got a lot of work to do. So the other thing that I have done is I have filled in all of these spaces. So now there is specific things being carved in each space, and each space is a little bit different than the other. And even as many as there are, as many workshops are going on here, I still don't feel like it's near enough for the size of Tal Valloran. For example, here they're carving out furniture. Here they're carving out more chairs and whatnot, and a table. And here they're carving out the benches. I worked in the elevator shaft here and detailed the elevator up. I added a little place up here where the stonemason, the master stonemason, and maybe some of his upper echelon leadership would sit and kind of like watch over the production going on. Here we have the rubble disposal, where they toss down the rubble and it's going to go down to the concrete factory down below. Right here is the lavatory, so whenever someone needs to go to the bathroom, they would make the trek up to here, and then they got some toilets. They're quite open, but as you can see, there is quite a few of them, so lots of space to do what needs to be done. I've not finished this yet, but this is going to be where the crane parks, and then there's going to be like a little maintenance shop right here where they'll be able to do work on it. Obviously, you'll see that I finished the wall here, and I've also added a horn, which was another suggestion by Cole. Cole Fetters, he had suggested a shift change horn, and I thought that was a really cool idea, so I connected it to the steam system, and then it gets operated back here by a lever, and then the hourglass would be their time-telling device. So of course, as you guys are able to tell, there is a administrative office up here. So this is where all the drawings would be done. This is where they would plan and prep things. This over here is the payroll office. So all the dwarves, when they need to get up here and get some money for their work, they'd come up here and get paid. And then this here is the vault where the stone workshop would get their money from. This right here is an elevator which leads down to this right here. So pretty much if you need to go to the bathroom or get paid, you would go to this corner right here. And also you could go up a few levels. And then if that elevator isn't working, you could go this way and go upstairs. I think it's just a really good idea to always have stairs available if you need to bypass a elevator that may be broken, so that's why I always put the stairs there. And then I have these lecterns here where you can kind of imagine these being drafts tables where each of these people would kind of draw out plans for different things that need to be done. This in here is a records room, so all of the records for all the different jobs that they've had throughout Tal Valloran would be kept here. And so if they need to bring up something for a repair or maybe draw up references for redesign, they would pull out the record and then go from there. So the master stonemason would have a seat there, and then different records keepers would be around on those different desks. Over here, we have another bathroom for the dwarves up here. And then left of the bathroom is a little meeting room. It's very modern. I love the modern feel of kind of like this administrative space. But anyways, this is like a little, table where they would talk about plans and things. And then, of course, a break room. Got to have a break room. And then this is going to lead into a future road system later on once we get to that point. And I guess I want to show off the ceiling in here as well. I made it fairly ornate. Pretty interesting, I think. And of course, added these lamps in as I like the idea of them lighting up these rooms and not just a bunch of like candles and torches and things. I just feel like that's kind of typical. Having these big lanterns, I do think makes a big difference. And I guess one thing that I really should pay attention to is the entranceway here. I don't think I've shown you guys a clear view of this, but this leads into where the quarry and the mines and under industries are going to be eventually. This is where the stones come in. And I designed this really kind of epic entrance into that network, that cave network. So I really like it. It's like, they used marble to make it look like, it's like sun rays coming out of it. I thought that looks really cool. And plus, I really like how the arch looks so sturdy. Really like the look of that. And by the way, I do want to mention that Cole Fetters actually designed this bathroom up here. I forgot to mention that earlier, but he was helping me the other night, or should I say last night, was helping me come up with a design for the lavatory. And then you put these designs in, which I thought are really cool. And then the other thing I want to mention is Susie is actually hard at work right now building a tree, which I was planning on putting here. And she's been really liking building trees. As you guys know, she built that one up there, and she wanted to build more. So I said, yeah, there's a nice little spot right in front of the stonemason's house. And so here she is building another amazing looking tree. Check that out. Super excited to see that finished. Well, I just got a stream in and I finished the maintenance shop here. So this is where the cranes would come in and or carts, anything that sort of needs repaired or fixed or upgraded. And there's a small forge here, some tools, miscellaneous things to keep things going. We got the same kind of crane that we have up in the top workshop. and that's down here getting fixed up right now. We got a ladder and a little toolbox. Someone's getting up there and doing some work on the mechanisms. And then over here, I've been developing a test for some foliage that we can expect to see underground here. So there is going to be weird stuff like this down in the depths of Valloran, and this is just a test. I want stuff like this all over the place. It's just gonna take some time for me to work it in. And then over here we have a small paddock where some goats are just kind of taking a rest in between jobs. So this is not the actual goat stable or pen. There's going to be that's going to be later on. That'll be down that road there. However, this is just a small little area where they would rest in the interim between being put away and their current day job. So one thing I really want to mention here is this is a very non-traditional Dwarven style that I'm going for here. Most people are used to a hand-carved into the mountainside, and then like these large halls are all carved out. That is the traditional Dwarven style that we're all used to, and it's an incredible style. But what we're doing here is something quite different. We're doing something that is inlaid with bronze, that is built, that is shaped, and that is built. It's not the style that is carved into the mountain. Now, there will definitely be more carved in bits later on, especially as we get down lower. Everything up here would be built, and that is the design and the style that we're going for here. Now, I wasn't able to finish everything for the stonemason for this episode, unfortunately. I wanted to try to get at least these two areas done. There's still a whole lot more to be done, but unfortunately, I've run out of time for this episode. This is 3 weeks worth of material that I have done, and I just feel like we need to get this episode out, keep the channel moving along, and then I'm going to come back to this later on and finish it up. So something I wanted to ask you guys is perhaps you could help me to come up with some fantasy foliage, things like this that would glow and that are just unique, that would fit in an underground environment. If you guys have ideas, come up with some designs and post them on my Discord so that I can maybe take inspiration from them and or copy them and use them throughout Valloran. But I'm looking for things that are not necessarily mushrooms to furnish the deep halls of Valloran. Just to think, all that work that we put in today is underneath this monster. It's actually underneath this section right here. You can see small bits where it's poking through the wall here. We're going to be utilizing this later on for sure. I got great ideas to utilize that space. And if you go back to episode 2, you'll see me explaining that. I think it's actually episode 1. In any case, this build is coming along really nicely. But next episode, we are going to be building in Riverton. Now, I'm not necessarily going to be making a series out of this or anything, but I want to build an inn called the Red Duke for Druss's city, and I'm going to be building it right here. So if you guys have any neat ideas or inspirations that you would think would be a good idea for an inn here, let me know, and maybe you could help shape what happens in the next episode. So the idea is that the inn is going to have a large central sort of place where everyone would meet and drink and have the bar and all the meat and big barrels and whatnot, and then there's going to be a stable and a place for people to stay. But maybe you guys might have some neat lore or ideas that could make this location really quite unique. So please share that in the comments, and let's see if we can make something truly spectacular here. That being said, I hope you all enjoyed this episode, perhaps got some inspirations, maybe have some ideas for the future. All in all, I'm just hope you're excited as I am to build this project. Valloran is coming along, It's a slow process, but it's a process nonetheless, and I am very happy with what has been done so far. So I hope you all have a great day, have a great night wherever you're from, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Till then, bye-bye.